What's happening, everybody? It's Sean with Reactions to the Classics, and today we got the best of alternative underground American rock music of the 1990s, Part 2. Brought to us by a friend, longtime supporter, patron of the channel, and a guy that knows a heck of a lot about music, Slayde Said. Thank you, Slayde Said. Always appreciate you and the stuff you bring me. I think I only know one artist on here, which I'm assuming you already knew because of the way you wrote this up. You knew I'd probably know one, but I don't know the rest. So here's what, and Slayde Said did basically all the research on this. I didn't find much on any of this stuff because he knows where to dive to find stuff that's not in the mainstream. So Slayde said, since I know that Sean has said that he believes that the 1990s was the worst decade for music, at least pop music, I decided to do a part 2 of my best of alternative underground American rock music of the 90s, just to show that there was a lot of great music around that just wasn't being aired on mainstream radio. And then he puts in parentheses, although by now I'm pretty sure that Sean is well aware of this. To be fair, I am, and partly thanks to you, Slayde Said, I am. Just as in the first part, I've decided to focus mainly on non-charting bands with one exception. More on that later. With that said, let's go to the first song on the list. You see it below. We got the Magnetic Fields, Yeah, Oh Yeah. Slayde Said Boston's The Magnetic Fields is a band mostly controlled by multi-instrumentalist singer and songwriter Stephen Merritt. The band began as a synth pop band, but later evolved into a more rock and roll or rock and folk oriented band, albeit still with some synth elements present in some of the material. They delivered their most acclaimed and ambitious album in 1999. The triple album set 69 love songs, which does indeed contain 69 love songs. Okay, I've heard of this before. I have heard of this. It's an incredible collection of songs going from chamber pop to country and from 1920s vaudeville to punk rock and back again. Picking one song is tricky indeed, I would imagine, but I went with the song Yeah, Oh Yeah, which has a great melody and an intelligent way to use lead vocals and backing vocals, with Stephen Merritt basically answering the female singer with Yeah, Oh Yeah, finally answering her cry, oh, I die, I die, I die, so it's over, you and I. Was my whole life just a lie? Yeah, oh yeah. All right. As always, appreciate you, Slayde Said. I'll have the lyrics up, and guys, if first time join us, the music won't be in here, but it's an Vimeo link below. Click below if you want to listen along, which I highly recommend. Yeah, oh yeah, what a song, man. We got Claudia Gonson on lead vocals with Steven. She's also playing the guitar on here, but I can see, it's hard when you got an album of 69 songs. Every song is going to sort of get lost in. It's going to be kind of hard for it to stand out. But, I mean, there was a lot in the songs, 2 minutes, 19 seconds long, man, and we got through. It's quite a story, It's Claudia singing on the whole first 3 verses. Are you out of love with me? Are you longing to be free? Do I drive you up a tree? Yeah, oh yeah. Verse 3, though I need you more than air, is it true you just don't care? Are you having an affair? Steven says, yeah, oh yeah. Then he does the bridge. When we met, I thought money was everything, so I let you buy the house, the cars, the ring, but I can't take your perpetual whining, and you can't sing. And then she sings some more. And then Steven does another bridge. I've enjoyed making you miserable for years, found peace of mind in playing on your fears. How I love to catch your gold and silver tears, but now, my dear. And then she comes back. What a dreary, dark and dreary life. Are you reaching for a knife? Could you kill your wife? Or could you really kill your wife? Yeah. Oh, yeah. And then that last part of what Slayde said at the start in the lyrics with the, she's going to die. I really enjoyed that, man. That was really good. Now we're up to number 9, Giant Sand, and their song Former Version of Ourselves. Slayde Said Giant Sand is a band from Tucson, Arizona, which would make sense, a lot of desert there, led by guitarist and vocalist Hal Gelb. Hal Gelb's way of playing guitar is heavily inspired by Neil Young, but the music is generally more jam-based and sometimes doesn't sound all too serious. A lot of the songs take some unexpected turns or have some weird arrangements, so you really never know what to expect from a song, let alone a full album. For this list, I went with the song Former Version of Ourselves from their 1990 album Swerve. Look out for a sudden change around 2 minutes and 50 seconds into the song. Slayde Said knows how to leave those teasers in there. Giant Sand, Former Versions of Ourselves. Slayde said in the teaser to this to watch out for the big tempo change at the 250 mark. And wow, man, we had to stop. So we had a false ending for about 2 seconds. And then all of a sudden we broke out into some jazz for about a minute. And then we had another tempo change. So just very interesting music. I think this is the kind of music that will grow on you. You've got to listen to it for a while, but it was definitely not boring. I didn't dislike it. I think it's something that, you have to dive into and to really appreciate. The song itself, I don't know, love to you, have to have you, want to want you, have to have you. I'm waiting here for a version of, and then there's a big, musical or little instrumental thing, our former selves. I'm sitting and abiding, but I'd rather be way outside and I'm waiting here for a version of ourselves. So I don't know that the lyrics are all that important. The instrumentation and the musicianship is top notch. Up to number 8, we got the band Beat Happening in the song Bury the Hammer. Slayde Said Beat Happening was a trio from Olympia, Washington. The band consisted of Calvin Johnson on vocals, Heather Lewis on drums, and Brett Lunsford on guitar. No bass player. The band played a crucial role in the development of the 1980s alternative rock scene, with Calvin Johnson co-founding the cassette-only label K Records, where local bands could get their music published. Fun fact, Kurt Cobain had a K Records tattoo. He was a huge K Records album collector and fan. Calvin Johnson also was partly responsible for launching the Sub Pop fanzine, which later evolved into the record label of the same name. In 1991, he was behind the music festival, the International Pop Underground Convention, IPU in short, which is a 6-day punk and alternative rock music festival. It included a number of great underground bands such as, it's either Fugazi or Fugazi. Trey and I disagree on this, and I've never looked up how to say it, but one of those two. It's the same band. Bikini Kill, which if I remember right, I think Cobain was dating their lead singer, and the Smells Like Teen Spirit came out. Don't hold me to that, man. That might just be all the research in this old brain of mine getting mixed up. But Built to Spill, a very early performance by them. Melvin's L7 and Courtney Love. The festival has gained cult status for its importance and exceptional value and has been described as the Woodstock of the 90s. This is what I'm talking about, man. Slayde Said knows so much. I've never even heard of this. As a band, Beat Happening was a true DIY entity. Formed by Calvin, who was not exactly an opera singer, and Heather Lewis, who could play drums, but only just, and then adding Brett Lunsford as a guitar player, even if he actually hadn't had any musical experience. The band was hardly the most technically gifted band from the start, but they learned as they went along. It is no wonder then that their best album was their final album, You Turn Me On from '92, from which I picked the song Bury the Hammer. Boys and girls, that's a music education for you there, man. I didn't know any of that. Bury the Hammer. Like, the longer this song went, the more I liked it. Slayde wasn't like, when I first heard Calvin's voice, I was like, wow, man, I don't know about this, man, but it just kind of grew on you, right? The atmospheric, the guitar work by Brett, and then Heather's drumming, she comes in there and kind of softens it up a little bit. It's about a relationship. I think that a guy whose relationship just keeps not working out, right? And so he's got to move on. And he's like, why is it even worth it to move on eventually to find someone else? That's kind of what I take out of it. I could be wrong, but that's kind of what I take out of it. It just kind of gets in your head and you just vibe with it, man. It's a 6-minute song. It doesn't feel like it, which is a big compliment. So I went from the first 20 seconds, I thought, there's no way it's going to be my favorites. It might actually be. So, like I said, everything was a little understated, but just worked just right. Bury the hammer. All right, now we'll move on to number 7. You see it below. The Innocent Mission with their song Bright as Yellow. Slayde Said The Innocent Mission is a band from Lancaster, Pennsylvania. Starting as a 4-piece in the early 80s, playing a soft version of melodic alternative rock. They became a trio in the late 90s when the drummer left the band, and since then they evolved into more of a chamber folk pop trio with just acoustic guitar, upright bass, and lead singer Karen Paris's charismatic and fairy-like vocals. The song picked here, Bright as Yellow, from their 1995 album Glow, their third album and final album featuring the drummer, was a small hit for the band. I also found it was on the Empire Records movie soundtrack, and in June of 2008, it was played as the official NASA wake-up call for the crew of Space Shuttle, of the Space Shuttle. So, yeah, there you go. Bright as Yellow. That thing went fast, man. Really enjoyed that atmospheric. It's something that could have been on like the Dawson's Creek soundtrack or something for all of you people who were alive and well in the 90s and watching some angst-ridden teen TV. I mean, I watched that entire series. I wasn't a teen at the time either. Really enjoyed that, man. I think she's just talking about, lyrically, she's just talking about the fact that she's admiring this other person because they're bright as yellow. They kind of can look at the bright side of everything, kind of radiate that. And she says, I don't want to be a rose. I do not wish to be pale pink, but flower scarlet, flower gold, and have no thorns to distance me, but be bright. So I thought Karen did a great job on that. I see on guitar was Don Paris. I'm assuming husband, could be brother. I don't know. Karen was also on the organ and the acoustics, so quite talented. But I enjoy it. That's the kind of thing that I listen to and go, you know what? I bet I could vibe with this whole album. So I need to add this album to my 1995 list of listens because Trey and I are going through the albums year by year every week. So we're right now, the time I'm filming this, we're in the mid 80s, but we're filming up into the early 90s. So Check that out if you haven't already, but I digress. I really did enjoy that one, though. We're up to number 6. We got Throwing Muses. I know Muse, but I don't know Throwing Muses. And the song Counting Backwards. Slayde said, we continue with the female singers, as Throwing Muses was a band led by guitarist, singer-songwriter Kristen Hirsch. Early on, Throwing Muses was compared a lot to Pixies, as they were both on the record label 4AD and shared some musical ideas and even toured together. At first, Pixies was the opening act, with Throwing Muses being the headliners. Later, that was reversed. This was not all they had in common, as the early co-leader of the band, guitarist and singer-songwriter Tanya Donnelly, joined Pixies bass player Kim Deal's band, The Breeders, in 1989. Tanya Donnelly did continue in Throwing Muses for another year before jumping ship and creating her own band, Belly, outside of playing in The Breeders, and she was an important part of the band that recorded the 1991 album, The Real Ramona, which most find is their best album, and I would agree. From that album, I've selected the opener, Counting Backwards, written by Kristen Hirsch. Counting Backwards, Throwing Muses. I don't really know what this song's about. I would just guess it's maybe about a friend messed her over. I don't know. Just because verse 1, in time I rope you in again, I try and burn you back through him. I built a tower in my bones, I spilled a mortar through my home, but otherwise it's kind of hard to figure out. It's really not about that. It's atmospheric, right? That guitar is the star of this. You know, Kristen's not exactly mixed to the front vocally. I mean, she's up there, but the music is given equal treatment, you know, as you listen to it sonically. So the guitar is the star. The drumming is pretty good in there. Kristen's voice is a little hit or miss for me. I see the Pixies comparisons for sure. Now we're already to the top half of the list. Number 5. This is the band most of us will know. Well, some of us will know. Soul Asylum with the song Somebody to Shove. Slayde said, okay, so this is a selection where I probably break my own rule regarding not including bands that charted high. Soul Asylum had a major hit with the song Runaway Train, which you would hear everywhere. And you got that right, brother. You would hear that everywhere. It's all over MTV. But outside of that, and a small hit from the follow-up album, the band didn't stay long in people's minds. So I decided to include them here, as I do believe they belong in a list like this based on what they created in the late 80s to early 90s. Soul Asylum was formed in Minneapolis in 1981 and was for a long time the minnows in the area compared to the Replacements and Husker Du, who appeared around the same time. It's kind of weird how Minneapolis had those two powerhouse bands. It would be hard to compete with that. Their status improved with 1988's Hang Time, which was the first time I personally heard the band, Slayde said. But it was obviously with the release of 1992's Grave Dancers Union with the singles Runaway Train and Black Gold that the band exploded into fame. Since everybody knows Runaway Train, I won't play that and will instead play the more rocking opener, Somebody to Shove. I found it was the first single off this record. It reached number 1 on the modern rock charts and 9 on the mainstream rock charts in the US. Somebody to Shove, I quite enjoyed that song. You can almost tell from some of these other songs, it's a jump in production value. That isn't why I enjoyed it, but you do definitely notice that difference from some of these other tracks. I just thought it was really well. Basically, the story of the song is this guy's alone, man. He's waiting for the phone to ring. You know, back in the day, we had to wait for the phone to ring. We didn't have phones we could carry around and text people and instantaneously be with them. So you just waited around, hoping someone would call you. And he's waiting for somebody to do that, because I'm waiting by the phone, waiting for you to call me up and tell me I'm not alone, because I want somebody to shove. I need somebody to shove. I want somebody to shove me. Probably a play on Jefferson's Airplanes, Somebody to Love, but who knows. But you're a dream for Insomniac's Prize and the Cracker Jack. All the difference in the world is just a call away, because I'm waiting by the phone, waiting for you to call me up and tell me I'm not alone. Just everything on this song worked pretty well. I mean, I don't have any credits of who's playing anything. For some reason, none of that is on Genius, but the guitar work, all of it was just really well done. So a good choice there. And I do agree. I mean, besides Runaway Train, I don't know anything. I couldn't even remember who sang Runaway Train. Once I read that, when I first looked at the research, when Slayde said Runaway Train, oh yeah, that song played in my head. I mean, Runaway Train, never coming back. So all that was playing in my head, and I'll spare you any more of my serenading. Now we're up to number 4. We got Senator Flux and the song Testimonial. Slayde said this would not be a typical list for me if it didn't include at least one band which does not have their music on Spotify, where you'd be hard-pressed to find any lyrics. You are correct, because I tried hard. I could not find any lyrics to this. And so we go from by far the most famous band on the list to the absolute opposite. Senator Flux was a band from Washington, D.C. They released 3 albums in a very short amount of time, from 89 to 92, and then disbanded without notice. The band consisted of members from punk bands like Minor Threat, Grey Matter, and Trusty, but their music was much less punk rock and much more college rock, with intellectual lyrics and an increasing focus on melodies. Their best album was their second album, The Criminal Special from 1991. And from this album, I have picked the song Testimonial, where the band's two singers exchanged vocals. Dave Levine on the verses in his typical part speaking, part singing vocal style, and Jeff Turner with a more melodic chorus. Side note, he says the album includes a very fine and respectful version of the little-known Beatles song, It's All Too Much, which is, I love that song, man. That song is great. So we're going to be over on YouTube, so you won't see it up on Spotify, and there are no lyrics, so I need to really focus. Senator Flux, Testimonial. Enjoyed that one. I was paying attention to the lyrics, and then partway through you start vibing with the instrumentation, right? It's hard to, on first listen, when you don't have lyrics in front of you, just focus on all of it, but mind and brain. So I did enjoy it. It was very interesting how Dave Levine is just doing that singing, and then Jeff Turner came in with that melody part. I thought that really, really worked, gave it a little diversity to it. I mean, he's talking about drugs in the opening part and Sell Me Something New and those things. So I don't know if it's about drug use or what it's exactly about, but I just did enjoy the overall atmosphere of the song, man. I'm definitely going to have to go listen to It's All Too Much. Back over on Spotify for number 3 on Slayde Said's Best of Alternative Underground American Rock Music of the 90s, Part 2. We got Quasi, A Fable with No Moral. He said Quasi is a Portland, Oregon duo consisting of one-time married couple, later divorced, which is always tough, right, when you have the band. Sam Combs, singer and multi-instrument, and Janet Weiss on drums. The duo plays a very 60s psychedelic rock-inspired version of alternative rock. While Quasi has been putting out records steadily since their formation, the two members here have been active in other bands and projects as well. It's just probably good, if you were married and then divorced, give a little space. Before forming Quasi, Sam Combs was involved in the band Heat Miser, which amongst others included Elliott Smith before he went solo. He has since then performed with the aforementioned Elliott Smith, Built to Spill, and Pink Mountain to name but a few. Janet Weiss is no slouch either. In 1997, she joined the all-female band Sleater Kennedy. I think we have some Sleater Kennedy up on the channel. If we don't have a song reaction, they definitely appear in some top 10s. And has played with Stephen Malkmus and the Jicks, as well as releasing a drummer-only album with Pearl Jam's Matt Cameron and Zach Hill from Death Grips. He says in parentheses, the album was one long 40-minute track consisting of the three drummers basically soloing off each other. It can be a tough listen, I bet. Anyway, back to Quasi, where I picked the song A Fable with No Moral from their third album, Field Studies from 1999. Quasi, not Quasi, I looked it up. And the song A Fable with No Moral, and just really, I thought all the instrumentation that Sam brings, I don't even know what all those keyboard sounds and different things are. And then, of course, Janet on the drums is great. And as I said, she was in Sleater Kennedy as well. So she's got quite the resume. But the star of the show in some ways, it's the atmosphere, right? Because there's a big, long build and a big, long outro, a big, long coda out there because, it's 7.5 minutes long with probably, 4 minutes of lyrics maybe in there, maybe a little less, but it's a fable with no moral, right? So the songwriting is just so clever. I went and sold my soul so I could pay my rent. I waited by the mail, but the check was never sent. And the way he delivers this in just kind of like this happy-go-lucky way. So I called the devil up, but I just got his machine. I left an angry message, said I got to have the green. I didn't give up then, but I made another plan. If Satan didn't want to sell my soul, I'd sell it to the man. He tried to find the number on the phone, but he couldn't find it. I'd get the money anyhow, no matter what it took. No paragon of virtue, at least I'm not a thief. It's so easily justified, but always leads to grief. So I got a piece of cardboard and made myself a sign to sell my soul below the market rate was my design. I went down on the street and I tried to make the deal. He's holding it up. A Land Rover drove by with Satan at the wheel. He saw what I was doing and said, that's not yours to sell. You'll get your check tomorrow and I'll see your ass in hell. So you better spend it well. I don't know, man. Just a funny song, like just so cleverly put together by Quasi. And we're up to number 2. You see it below. 16 horsepower, the song For Heaven's Sake. Slayde Said 16 horsepower was a band that style-wise was placed somewhere where alternative rock, alt country, and alternative folk rock meet, or alternative folk meet. The band from Denver, Colorado was formed in the early 1990s by band leader David Eugene Edwards. Coming from a very religious upbringing, Edwards' lyrics often had religious themes, while the music was very unique in its blend of rock, folk, and country. 16 Horsepower was truly a band that had its own style. Before disbanding in 2005, they released 5 very good albums, the final one, Folklore, being released in 2002. I have picked the song For Heaven's Sake from their second album, Low Estate, from 1998. For Heaven's Sake, what a nice rockin' song on here. Some instrumental build-up and you know, what a bit of a in the coda there. David Eugene Edwards, just his vocals on here and the songwriting, which I'll get to the lyricism in a little bit. I'm just trying to see who else was on here. You know, you've got David appears to be on the guitar as well. These guys play a lot of different instruments, man. These guys are very talented. I'm looking at the musician credits for the album because there's nothing on the song itself, but just Pascal Humbert on bass and Jeffrey Paul Norlander on fiddle, cello, organ, John Yeast Tola on drums. Yeah, he's got some guys really laying it down. The song itself quite well put together. It's got that hard edge to it, which I like. If you haven't watched this channel before, I'm a Christian, so I like that there's a lot of religious imagery in here, but it wasn't some sort of like watered down song that you hear so much in contemporary Christian music, which I don't listen to. It's had some bite to it. But he said, I surely knew it was a trap, yea. Yet my hands, they would not listen. I should have known your word was flap, coming out all sweet and dripping. So he could be talking about the devil, but he also could be talking about a girl who he knows is leading him down the wrong path, right? Whether you're a Christian or not, there's times in our lives where, you know, our subconscious tells us, look, man, you're going down the wrong path, but you just kind of do it anyway because you like it or you just can't get yourself out of it. Where could I go but to the Lord when I hurt? Well, when will I hurt for heaven's sake? When will I suffer for the sake of heaven? All my love, well, it is madness, freely given to you folks with gladness. I will not live and die. No, not by the sword. I am weak without the joy of the Lord. Taste and see that the Lord is good. Let's bend our knees like we know we should. We can't see clear. Our eyes are made of wood. Taste and see, boy, that the Lord is good. So that's a little takeoff from Psalm 34 in there. But the way he delivers it, man, David's voice, just love it, man. Just really well done. Now we need that proverbial drum roll, but I mean, you already see it, boy. You got Sand Rubies in the song Santa Maria Street coming in at number 1 on this list. Tucson, Arizona's Sand Rubies was a band that was formed by members of the former band The Sidewinders, which could not continue due to some legal issues with the band name, as the Sidewinders had already released 3 albums before Sand Rubies released their debut album under their new name. The Sidewinders and Sand Rubies were some of the more archetypical alternative rock bands on the list. The band, as the Sidewinders, was formed by guitarist Rich Hopkins and vocalist David Slutz in 1985, and the two have been the main members of the band since then, writing pretty much all the songs. Their self-titled Sand Rubies debut album from 1993 is their best, and with the single Santa Maria Street, which even had a video shot for MTV rotation. They really should have made it big, but for different reasons it never happened. I would say one of the reasons that couldn't have helped them is having to change your band name after you'd already released 3 albums. Man, that is rough. That sucks, man. All right, let's check it out. Number 1, Santa Maria Street, Sand Rubies, number 1 on Slayde Said's list of the best alternative underground American rock music of the 90s. Part 2. I really enjoyed this, man. I was looking at some research on the band, and the rhythm section had left because it was a 2-year battle. There's a band in North Carolina called the Sidewinders, and that's who sued these guys. And so through attrition, I mean, 2 years not being able to put out their next album, people are going to leave, right? People got to make a living, man. So it kind of sucks. I saw that Pearl Jam was their opening act for a little while. It kind of tells you where these guys were headed, and then it just, you know, it just went off track, man. But I mentioned Rich Hopkins' guitar work on here is fantastic, and David Slutz on the vocals. I just enjoy his delivery. It's a very catchy song, very well done, and crazy these guys didn't make it bigger, especially at this time, a period where this kind of music, even though grunge was coming on, was still a very popular thing. I read on here, they're from Arizona. Gin Blossoms were really starting to take off with a sort of similar sound, and Gin Blossoms were also from Arizona. So just enjoyed that song. Now we're going to get to my favorite tracks. And, you know, I keep notes here. I look at Slayde Said's notes, which I'm obviously, you know, reading off of, and then I make little notes for each song. And, you know, you go back and go, man, I got a lot of faves and a lot of honorable mentions, but that's a sign of a good list. And so we'll go honorable mentions first. We're going to go with Beat Happening, Bury the Hammer. My man Calvin Johnson's lyrics, I told you it was number 8. It really turned me off at first, but the longer the song went on, the more I was feeling it. We're going to go with Quasi's A Fable with No Moral for honorable mention, just because, man, The songwriting on that was fantastic. We'll go with 16 Horsepower, For Heaven's Sakes, David Eugene Edwards. Songwriting on there also. Now we get to my faves. The first song we heard, The Magnetic Fields, Yeah, Oh Yeah, off that epic 69 song album. Also go with The Innocence Mission, Bright as Yellow. Enjoyed that one. That's the one that was in the Empire Records soundtrack. Somebody to Shove by Soul Asylum. It's got to be up there, man. I know the most popular band, so to speak, on this list. And then this last one, San Ruby, Santa Maria Street. Great pick for number one, Slayde Said. So thank you, Slayde Said, for informing me and educating me on some more good 90s music. You've turned me around here. The 90s did have good stuff. I just wasn't able to listen to it. You've helped me discover a lot of 80s stuff I wasn't able to listen to either. So much appreciate that. Much appreciate all the patrons who keep this thing going. If you'd like to support us anyway, like Slayde Said, check out the Patreon link below or the Patreon link on the end screen. Also look below. We got a great Facebook group, lots of great music talk, a lot of live streams. Give us a thumbs up if you haven't. And lastly, give us a subscribe if you haven't already. We really appreciate it. Until next time, guys, I will see you.